Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast. This is week 14's edition of Good Week, Bad Week, which is getting more like being a great week or awful week as we get to the crunch point of the season. We've still got 21 teams in contention for 14 postseason berths. So as we head towards the postseason, I'm now going to use these pieces to try and identify potential strengths and weaknesses that could be critical come playoff time. So first of all, it was a good week for the Houston Texans. The Texans got a fifth win in a row, which gives us the third longest current winning streak in the league behind the Broncos and Patriots. If that was not good enough, it came over a key wildcard rival in the AFC in the Chiefs, moves them into a wildcard spot as a result, and also pulls them within a game of the Jaguars and into second place in the AFC South. And upcoming home games against the Cardinals and Raiders give them a great opportunity to extend that winning run to 7. And with the league's best defense that week after week delivers, they are certainly a threat to all this season and must be considered that now. They have only conceded 20 points or more in 3 games this season, and no team has scored 30 against them, which is incredible, really. Um, Now, when they gave up 29 to the Jags earlier in the season, it was the special teams that let them down, conceding a long kick return touchdown and fumbling a kick return deep in their own territory. In week 2, they conceded a 2-minute drill to the Bucks in another suspect game for them, but had only given up 13 points in the first 58 minutes of that one. So really, that was another decent performance by the defense. So it was only the Seahawks offense in week 7 that did well against this defensive unit. So one game, that's it. That shows how good this defense is. On the flip side, the offense has only scored more than 2 touchdowns in 2 of its 13 games, and red zone efficiency is a major issue for them as they have attempted 32 field goals and just 18 extra points. So whilst they look well on course for the postseason and possibly a divisional title now, and despite the old saying that defense wins championships, which is pretty much true, the offense needs to become more red zone efficient against the teams and better teams that come the postseason. Although, as their schedule has meant they have played 11 games against teams with 6 wins or more, 8 against teams with 9 wins or more, they've already shown they can do it against good teams despite that red zone issue. But it did certainly cost them in their week 7 and 9 losses to the Seahawks and Broncos, where they kicked 9 field goals and scored just 1 touchdown across those 2 games. The Green Bay Packers had a good week. A pivotal win over the Bears pivots them up to the top of the NFC North and puts them a win or 2 away from securing postseason football. Their next 2 games are at Denver and the rematch in Chicago, which present 2 further tough tests of the Packers' divisional title and postseason contender credentials. Not easy to say. Win, win one or both of these, and they will mark themselves as one of the very best teams in the league. Lose both, and they will be pitched back into a battle to even make the postseason from the NFC. Now, rankings wise, they're a top 10 team on offense and defense, indeed top 5 for defense. But that means they're good, but can they be very good? Well, they probably are in terms of the defense, or even excellent come the postseason when they will need to be. Now, not making mistakes has served them well this season. They protected Jordan Love well, allowing him to be sacked just 18 times. And as a result, he's thrown just 4 picks as a result of being given that time. He does, however, have 6 fumbles this season. That's half of the team's 12, as the others have been really good in terms of ball security. So not giving it away on offense, I know with that strong defense that has only given up more than 25 points once this season, that was the tied game with the Cowboys. That will likely get them to the postseason. But is that good enough to win it all? Will be my concern regarding the Packers' title potentials. Buffalo Bills had a good week. They got a win they badly needed, pushing them up the AFC standings and eliminating a regular AFC rival in the Bengals in the process. As I'm fond of saying about people and teams in general, they are a team whose greatest strength may also be its greatest weakness. In their case, the reliance on superstar quarterback Josh Allen. In the 4 games the Bills have lost this season, Allen has had 2 turnovers against the Patriots, 4 against the Falcons, 2 against the Dolphins, and another pair against the Texans. Whilst in those games, James Cook only topped 100 scrimmage yards or had a touchdown against Houston. And across the 4 games, he had just 62 rushing attempts, an average of 15 and a half a game, when he really needs to be having 20 plus carries and he needs to use him more and Allen less. On top of having the worst run defense in the league, these could be fatal flaws for the Bills this season. But now they prepare to face the Patriots on the road in a game they have to win to stay in the AFC title race, as Patriots win this week gives them the title, and to ensure they stay ahead of the Texans and Colts in the wild card race. All right, quick drink. Good week for the Los Angeles Rams. After a rare error-strewn game from Matthew Stafford in their Week 13 loss to the Panthers, Stafford and the Rams show how good they can be in taking the Cardinals apart in Week 14. That win takes them back to the top of the NFC standings. Sorry, I've lost my thread here. Just give me a second. Right, that win takes them back to the top of the NFC standings and in possession of currently on target to get the bye week and also home field advantage come the postseason. And that could be key in the uber tough NFC postseason bracket. They will certainly need to show they are worthy of that position when they face the Lions and then head to Seattle in the next 2 weeks. They are the third highest scorers team and give up the fourth least points, so they're still a team everybody has to fear, and probably the team everybody has to beat. They have only given up more than 20 points 4 times this season, but lost 3 of those games. In 2 of these, the opposing running backs combined for more than 150 scrimmage yards, something they also did when narrowly beating the Seahawks. The Rams narrowly beat the Seahawks. So this could be the Rams' Achilles heel, that threat of a duo of running backs against them, along with Stafford having very occasional off games. The Week 16 game of the Seahawks could decide the NFC West title. Now, many will point to the Seahawks nearly beating the Rams in LA in Week 11, despite 4 Sam Darnold picks in that game, as an indicator the Seahawks are the better team. And the Seahawks are a team that is well matched against the Rams, so they may well be the biggest threats to the Rams this season, full stop. And we'll move on to the Seahawks, who were equally as impressive as the Rams in Week 14, taking apart the Falcons. They ranked second in the league for both points scored and conceded, so in that regard are even more rounded than the Rams. But it's the star quality thing that gets me. When you look at the offenses, who would you rather have, Matt Stafford or Sam Darnold? I know the answer. Would you have Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams or Jackson Smith and Juba, Cooper Cup and Rashid Shaheed? Well, there's 3-on-2 there, but I'd still take Nakua and Adams. And the running back pairings, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum or Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, probably goes to the Seahawks. But for me, the Rams win the Rams and quarterback and wide receiver questions, and that could be a big difference in winning big games when big players come to the fore. But make no mistakes, these Seahawks are one of the principal contenders to win it all this season. But it does worry me that 2 of their 3 defeats have come at the hands of the Rams and 49ers, teams who know them best and have worked out how to beat them. But it has to be said, if Darnold and Smith and Jigba can keep the passing game effective, their ground offense and excellent defense that has only conceded more than 24 points once this season can certainly get the job done. Now, I've mentioned the Rams game in Week 16, but first the Seahawks will need to take care of the Colts at home in Week 15, a task that has been made much easier now that the Colts are in a quarterback mess without Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard. They're getting Philip Rivers out of a retirement home potentially, or using Brett Rippon. So it should be a good opportunity for the Seahawks to take them down. Right. Denver Broncos had a good week. Another win, but another that was made relatively hard work of against the Raiders. Now, 11 of the Broncos' 13 games this season have been one-score games. Only the Dallas and Cincinnati wins were done with ease. There is no doubt in the Broncos' defensive qualities, where they're ranked third for yardage conceded and fourth for points conceded. But there are numerous questions over the inconsistent and possibly unreliable Broncos offense. Bo Nix is just far too inconsistent for me. Cortland Sutton is their best wide receiver, but he's a 30-year-old veteran quarterback who has 37 career touchdowns to his name and averages 55 receiving yards a game, making him a solid wide receiver but not great, a comment that applies pretty much across their offensive talent. As such, I've seen them as highly vulnerable to good teams come the postseason. That may only be the Bills and Texans from the AFC, though, so they may still be capable of winning an AFC championship, but I'm not sure they're favourites to do so, even if they got the bye. Um, Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers' OT win over Philly on Monday Night Football was one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive, in terms of overcoming adversity and turning their momentum around in week 14. A quarterback who had had surgery on his non-thrown hand in the lead up to this game, facing the first of 5 tough games to close the season out. A loss here would have been really damaging to their AFC standing and also to their morale levels. But the win puts them at the front of the AFC wildcard race and gives them hope of winning 2 of their remaining 4 games against the Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, and Broncos. That would probably be enough to get them into the postseason. Their defense was superb against the Eagles, and their pass defense in particular really got the job done in getting them this huge win. But as with all the AFC contenders, there are obvious flaws in this Chargers team. Justin Herbert has been sacked 45 times, so it's no surprise he ended up getting hurt. And he has been pressured into throwing 11 picks, which is more than he has thrown in the previous 2 seasons combined. They also rank 27th for rushing touchdown scores, so are far too reliant on that passing game to get them into the end zone. All of which means the Chargers are still far from certain to make the postseason and may win a game or two in the postseason if they get there. But I do not see them as serious contenders to win it all this season. Coffee time. Right. Staying in the AFC, it was a good week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another mediocre performance, but a win is a win, and the Steelers certainly had the officiating go their way in week 14. 3 significant calls went the Steelers' way in that game, which probably made a 14, 17 point difference. 14-point difference, let's call it that. I've already had my rant about that in my power rankings piece, though, so enough said on that front. What it does mean is the Steelers are now top of the AFC North and in good position to make the postseason. But even if they do, they will be the team everybody will want to be the 5 seed and therefore meet them in round 1, which is common enough on their chances of success this season. This is a team that ranks 27th for offensive yardage and 28th for yardage given up on defense. That is just not going to wash come the postseason should they get that far. Don't think I'm a Steelers hater. I'm always objective, but the facts are what the facts are. They're just not a good team. And they've been fortunate to get where they are. Lamar Jackson's injury, Joe Burrow's injury has left a door open for them, and they're still struggling to walk through it. Right, move on. Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's another team I can't seem to find nice words about, although they did everything required of them in exploiting a spiraling Colts team that lost its starting quarterback and had to bring in a rookie quarterback 3 in his place. But with a favourable run-in ahead, the Jags are almost certain to make the postseason now and possibly as divisional champions if they can exploit that run-in to hold off the hard-charging Texans. They are decent both offensively and defensively, especially in terms of run offense and defense. Their pass defense relies on takeaways, which gives up plenty of yardage and scores in between them. And Trevor Lawrence has thrown 11 picks this season despite not being greatly pressured. All of which says to me that Jags are not going to be consistent enough to go deep into the postseason. A bad week will come along against a better team, and that will send them home to think again. Right, another team that overcame adversity in week 14 and had a good week were the Detroit Lions. They may be the team most under pressure to win, along with the Chiefs in week 14, but they did so. A loss would have left one of the preseason NFC favourites 2 games outside of the wildcard spots and 2.5 games out of the NFC North lead. But having beaten the Cowboys with another offensive powerhouse performance, they are now just a game back in the wildcard and still in the divisional title race. That said, losing Brian Branch is another big blow injury-wise to the Lions' hopes of first making the postseason and then going deep into it if they get there. This offense, as it showed here, is capable of putting a 40 spot on pretty much any team in the league, but its defense has a penchant for giving up big plays, and losing Branch won't help them in that regard. And if the offense misfires, that can lead to bad losses too. The Lions have topped 30 points in 7 of their 13 games this season, winning all of them. In the 6 games they scored less than 30, they only won 1 of them, but have conceded 30 or more 4 times, losing 2 of those. So, from those numbers, any team that can keep them under 30 points has a high chance of beating them. Green Bay have already done that to them twice, the Eagles once, and the likes of the Rams and Seahawks have strong defenses too. So this is going to be a tough road come the postseason for the Lions. And if they get to the postseason, I mean road, as the likelihood is they will be playing on the road as a wildcard team. Right, good week for the Carolina Panthers. All the Panthers wanted on their bye week was the Bucks loss to the Saints, and that is what they got. If they can beat the Bucks twice in the closing 4 weeks of the season, they win the NFC South. If they lose both, they cannot make the postseason. Well, a split of the games means they may need to beat both the Saints on the road in Week 15 and the Seahawks at home in Week 17, depending on what the Bucks do in those 2 weeks. But this is an NFC team that is decent on defense, but no more than that. And their young offense is improving, but still ranks 23rd for yardage and 28th in scoring this season, all of which is indicative of a team for whom making the postseason would be a fine achievement and represent a good move at this stage of its evolution rather than a title contender. Right, Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins came into week 10 needing to climb an 8-rung stairway to heaven and get help along the way to make the postseason. Well, beating the Jets in week 14 means they are halfway up that ladder, but they're not getting the help they need from the likes of the Bills, Texans, and Chargers. All they can do, though, is keep winning and hope for the best. Starting in Pittsburgh in week 16 and then at home to Cincy in week 16. This team really doesn't look good enough to pull off an 8-win act of miraculous nature to make the postseason, though. So I'll wait a week or two before even contemplate what they could do in the postseason. Right, added section here, bad week, but. And the first team that applies to is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The loss to the Saints was a really bad loss. Make no mistake. But aside from putting in a dent in their divisional record, it does not alter their chances of making the postseason a great deal. As per my comments, read the Panthers. If either team sweeps or gets swept in those games between the two, that is the NFC South title decided regardless of the other games. Where the Saints' loss is damaging is the event of the two games being split between the Bucks and the Panthers. Then divisional and then conference records become the tiebreakers. Right, bear with me here as we get into the postseason scenario game for the first time. Both teams are now 2-1 within the division, so Carolina's game with New Orleans and Tampa's meeting with Atlanta in week 15 take on extra significance in terms of divisional record. If both win and they split the games between the two, then the conference record will be used to break the tie. Tampa are currently 5-4 and Carolina 5-3 within conference. So if both teams win in week 15 and share the games between the two, then Carolina would have to win in week 17 against Seattle, or the tiebreak would belong to Tampa. Tampa go to Miami in week 17. So to make it simple for Tampa, beat Atlanta on Thursday Night Football this week, then winning Carolina and Miami, combined with a loss for the Panthers in New Orleans or at home to Seattle, and they'll be divisional champions before we even get to week 18. So that's the simplest route for the Bucks. So it's not all bad. Right, similar story for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. It was a bad week for both because they both lost, but ultimately the gap remains the same between them, 1.5 games in the NFC East. So for the Eagles, they are 1 week closer to clinching, and the Cowboys probably need to win out from here to have a chance to overhaul them in this division. For the Cowboys, what felt like a terminal loss to the Lions on Thursday Night Football has not turned out to be so following the Eagles' loss 4 days later. Given the Eagles' relatively easy running against the Raiders, 2 games against the Commanders, and 1 against the Bills, they remain in a very strong position and can put it beyond the Cowboys by winning 3 of those games. So they don't even need to worry about the Bills game theoretically. But they look vulnerable right now. So if the Cowboys can win out, it could well be them that goes beyond week 18 and not the Eagles. One thing I do know is that these two teams can be dangerous opponents come the postseason, and the winner of this division will likely be the 3 seed. So the 6 seed is the one you would prefer not to be in the NFC bracket. Right, let's get on to bad week, and I've got to be quick here. Kansas City Chiefs, well, their situation went from bad to worse as they went into week 14, missing 3 starting O linemen and lost another of its first on the first play of week 14's game with the Texans. Their situation may be close to impossible unless they can get the O line together somehow. Even if they win out from here, then one more win for each of the Jags, Bills, and Chargers, plus 2 more for the Texans would eliminate them anyway. The Chiefs are not used to bad weeks, but this one is about as bad as it gets for the franchise of the decade so far. It was a bad week for the Indianapolis Colts, 3 losses in a row, and now they lose Daniel Jones. With Anthony Richardson on the injury list and Riley Leonard joining them there, they're getting desperate for a quarterback there, and we know what's going on with Philip Rivers, blah, blah, blah. All of which would be bad enough, but their own Week 14 to the loss to the Jags, plus wins for the Bills, Chargers, and Texans, dump the Colts out of the AFC wildcard spots right now. The Bills and Texans might be tough to catch now, as I've said, the Chargers have a tough run in, but the Colts without Daniel Jones may need to win 3 of their last 4 games to make the postseason. More coffee quickly. At the Seahawks and at home to the 49ers do not look appetising starters for the Colts before the main course of the Jags and Texans. 4 teams with 36 wins between them this season. What looked like a season of hope and joy is getting grinched for the Colts right now. The Baltimore Ravens had a bad week. They must be furious after losing to the Steelers at home in Week 14. Yes, they got the very rough end of calls in that game and have reason to consider themselves very hard done to in that regard. But they still had chances to win this game against an average Steelers team and failed to take them. So, as much as it is easy to blame the officials with plenty of justification, they should have at least as long a hard look at themselves, particularly the offense and Lamar Jackson. The pre-injury Lamar would have put this a game away for the Ravens. The post-injury version is nowhere near that and needs to return if the Ravens are to recover to take the AFC North title, especially as they face the Bengals, Patriots, and Packers before they even get a chance at revenge in Pittsburgh in Week 18. But that game may not even be relevant if Lamar and co do not play well in the next 3. Bad week for the Chicago Bears. Look, if you said to the Bears before the season started they would be in a playoff position after 14 weeks, they would have been more than happy to take it. But such is the tightly packed nature of the NFC North in the NFC that this loss in Lambeau not only cost them the divisional lead, but drops them all the way down to the final wildcard spot, just a game clear of the Lions. They played well at Green Bay, but lost. The good news is they host the Browns, which they would hope to win in Week 15 before welcoming the Packers to Chicago in Week 16. So win their next 2, and they could be back top. Then they will be back top of the NFC North, but they may need to do so as they finish their regular season in San Fran and at home to the Lions. And that last game could be an elimination game if they don't do well in the next 2 games. Right, New England Patriots, a bad bye week for the Patriots. The Broncos took top spot from them in the AFC standings, and the Bills pulled in 2 games of them before the 2 meet in Week 15. Win this week, though, against the Bills, and the Patriots are divisional champions. And it would be sweet for them indeed to do it against the reigning AFC champion Bills. They may not have enjoyed their bye week, but they have a lot to celebrate after Week 15. But they may have a lot to celebrate after Week 15, I should say. A loss, however, would bring the divisional title race right back to life and also prove costly in terms of a Week 1 bye and home field advantage come the postseason. Like them, it was a bad bye week, really, for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, they would have expected both the Rams and Seahawks to win in Week 14, but the fact they did has lessened their divisional title hopes significantly. 2 more wins surely gets them into the postseason, though, and after a week's rest, they will fancy their chances of getting one of them at home to the Tennessee in Week 15. Right, let's rip through in other news. The New Orleans Saints pulled off a shock win in a wet Tampa. Tyler Shough continues to strengthen his claim to be their 2026 starting quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals have lost a bunch of close games this season, but the Rams showed how big the gap between the Cardinals and them is in Week 14. The Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy were the latest pass offense to make hay against the Washington Commanders, but neither will be harvesting any trophies this season. The Cincinnati Bengals folded in the fourth quarter to the Bills and now need a miracle to win the AFC North. The Atlanta Falcons got savaged by the Seahawks to eliminate them from the NFC title race, which was their last hope of making the postseason. The New York Jets started with Justin Fields, which was not a good place to start, then had to turn to Tyrod Taylor, and now he got hurt, meaning Brady Cook is their best quarterback option. Guess they better look at this position before anything else then in the off-season. The Las Vegas Raiders lost to the Broncos in the most predictable result of the week. The New York Giants move up to the second overall overall pick in the 2026 draft following the Saints win. And the Tennessee Titans got win number 2 of the season as they beat the Browns. They still hold first overall pick for the 2026 draft, though. For Cleveland, Shadur Sanders has locked in the starting position for the rest of the season, maybe beyond that too. Any thoughts, all these teams? What are the thoughts of the teams that passed on him now, you wonder? Secondly, Miles Garrett moved another sack closer to breaking the single season sack record. So that's me done and dusted in 25 minutes. See you for the next one soon.